How many of you are supposed to have your presentation, some kind of presentation today? Yes, Ankur, what is it on?
Yes, so my presentation was on whether this legal representative can be, it was basically on a case with the name of S. Mohammed Liaq versus Ramji,
Hmm. So
1952,
what did you
and
find
with
out?
so, sir, it says that legal representative generally, when in speaking in the terms of section 2, subsection 10,
Hmm.
does not is not a judgment debtor.
Hmm.
Because it cannot be said that a decree is passed against him. So court gave sufficient reasoning why it cannot be called a judgment debtor. But
Okay.
in terms
Okay,
of
I was just
chapter
asking you what it
21,
was on generally. Okay, so that was what it was on. Monica, what was your case on?
Sir, I was supposed to prepare two case laws
Hmm.
about the retrospective applicability of or the judgments of
So
foreign
did it
courts.
help? Was it on the same point?
Yes, sir, it was, but both the judgments which you gave, the findings were different, but that those findings were different because of the factual
Okay,
irregularities which is right.
good. Okay.
Also,
So
sir, I
mhm,
can I please mention something? I read those judgments, but I'm not clear enough to present them today. So can I maybe present them tomorrow?
that's
If
okay.
that's
Like both of them or one of them?
both of them. Both of them.
Okay, okay. Then you have your time till tomorrow. Ankur, you are good to go for today, right?
yes, sir.
Please start.
Okay. Also, so Shubham was also given this case to be researched on a side-by-side basis. So I'll just start with mine on
Yes,
research.
yes, yes. Because I don't see him.
Yes, sir. So okay. So this case basically has a little complicated set of facts. So I just tell you in like very summarized kind of way. So there was the respondents here. The case name is as Mohammed Liaq and others versus Ramji and others, and it was decided in 1952, AIR 1952. So the respondents here obtained a decree against Mir Muzaffar Hussain for a particular estate in 1931. Then Mir Muzaffar Hussain died in 1932, in January 1932, and he was succeeded by 12 persons, including the appellants which is S. Mohammed Liaq and others. So, uh, so the first execution petition against Mir Muzaffar Hussain was filed on. So there were numerous execution petitions being filed. There were around 4 or 5 execution petitions which were filed, and uh, and it was objected by the appellants at each stage until the last stage, where the thing which we are concerned here with is whether the definition of legal representative under section 2 subsection 10 can be said to include legal representative into the definition of judgment debtor. So the points which are relevant here is with respect to the second execution application, which was dismissed by the court. It was basically stated that this execution application uh, was not accompanied by an inventory of the movables which need to be attached for the sale of movables belonging to Mir Muzaffar Hussain. And it was contended that an inventory was obligatory under Order 21, Rule 12, and that as the mandatory provision was not complied with, the application was not in accordance with law. So the courts below applied the rule in the way that because the legal representatives are not judgment debtors within the meaning of this rule, and the rule is so. Actually, are you all with me till here, or I mean, just I'll just tell you what happened with respect to this, whether legal representative can be included in the judgment debtor definition. Because I'm not sure if you are all following me with the facts of the case, because I was too confused about it for a little while.
My personal suggestion would be, Ankur, like in fact, not just to you, to everybody who presents. You know, it really helps if you at least switch on your videos during the time you present. मतलब, it is just that थोड़ा सा कोई देख पाता है कि क्या बोल रहा है तो ज़्यादा सुनता है. मतलब, this is just my take. Otherwise, so you know, we can all have classes on conference calls. मतलब, just think about it. I always encourage you to.
Sir, I'll open my video chat. That's not a
Okay.
problem. I just yeah. So as I was asking, if is everyone following me with the facts, so should I just mention how this, because the facts are not very important here. They deal with other issues also, and only a part of them deal with whether a legal representative can be included in the definition of a judgment debtor. So I can just explain the reasoning of the court where it says that legal representative cannot be included in the definition of a judgment debtor at all times.
I think we somehow comprehended the facts, so you could just directly tell the latter one, as in key legal representative coming debtor or not.
Okay. And I got some chat also. They couldn't follow the facts. I couldn't follow the facts. Actually, it's a little bit, confusing for me also, because I just read it an hour back, this case, and I'm not very sure about the facts. But like I told you, the facts are not very important here. The only important thing is whether legal representative can be included in the definition of a judgment debtor. So, with respect to section 2 subsection 10, the court has says that a judgment debtor means any person against whom a decree has been passed. So according to this definition, which the court says, and I'm quoting it in exact words, so according to this definition, a legal representative of a judgment debtor is not a judgment debtor. It cannot be said that a decree has been passed against him. He may be liable to discharge the decree out of the assets received by him from the judgment debtor, but that liability attaches itself to him because of the receipt of the assets by him, and not because of his being the judgment debtor. So there is a distinction recognized in law between judgment debtor and legal representative. So it says that subject to the provisions of section 60 CPC, all property of a judgment debtor is liable to attachment and sale, and he is also liable to be arrested. But all property of a legal representative is not liable to attachment and sale, and he cannot be arrested. Only that property which he has received from the deceased judgment debtor can be attached and sold. So in essence, what the court is trying to say is that not in all circumstances can a judgment debtor be said to be including the legal representative of him. Because when it comes to, the enforcement and the execution and sale of all the assets of a judgment debtor, it does not necessarily follow that a legal representative's assets also are included within it. However, there are exceptions which I'll come to later, which says in according to the order 21 and some rules in that order, wherein a legal representative can be included in the definition of a judgment debtor. But like I said, it is not always, and generally it follows that legal representative and judgment debtor are two separate things, and legal representative is not a judgment debtor. So it also says that as per section 50 and 52, the terms judgment debtor and legal representative of a judgment debtor are not synonymous. So it is laid down in section 50 that where a judgment debtor dies before satisfying the decree in full, the decree holder may apply to the court to execute it against the legal representative of the deceased. So when the section speaks of judgment debtor and of a legal representative of a judgment debtor, it clearly emphasizes the distinction between the two. However, in section 52, It deals with the decree passed against the legal representative of a deceased person who was primarily liable. Here, the legal representative becomes a judgment debtor because the decree was actually passed against him. So he's described as judgment debtor. So you see there is a difference between both these sections, section 50 and 52. In section 50, they are both different terms. They both imply different meanings, a judgment debtor and legal representative, where a legal representative is only liable till the how much estate he has received from the judgment debtor. But in section 52, a decree is passed against him, so he is liable as a judgment debtor. So therefore, he is described as judgment. The court also says that debtor is used very frequently in the court. So in certain rules such as section 30, 31, 33, 87, 48 of Order 21, it cannot possibly include legal representative of a judgment debtor, because in all these rules it says that a decree can be executed by arrest judgment or by a sale of his property. So since a legal representative cannot be arrested or his property cannot be sold and it cannot be attached for the execution of a decree against the judgment debtor, therefore he cannot be included in the definition of judgment debtor. And but like in certain other rules, there the legal representative can be included judgment debtor. For example, rules 2, 26, 42, 43, 46, 54, 60, 61, 66, 68, 79 of Order 21. So, for example, Rule 2 gives a valuable right to judgment debtor to obtain certification of payment. So, if this word is not deemed to include a legal representative of a judgment debtor, a valuable right would be lost to him. And so there is nothing to indicate that the legislature intended not to give this right to him. So basically, what the court has said is that judgment debtor does not always include legal representative, but in certain circumstances, it can include a legal representative. So it has to be construed in each case as per the rule and order given under the CPC. So under this case, the order 12, it was order 21, rule 12, sorry. So the fact which I stated that there was this contention that inventory, you have to attach the
Come towards
inventory
your
also.
conclusion now, Ankur.
Yeah, so this is my conclusion right now. So as according to this case, Order 21, Rule 12 was in question, and it was according to that rule that when an application is made for attachment of any movable belonging to a judgment debtor but not in his possession, the decree holder shall annex to the application an inventory of the property to be attached. So this clearly implies here that the property judgment debtor, very specific legal representative, his property cannot be included in the property of the judgment debtor, and therefore when it says that the property which is belonging to a judgment debtor but not in his possession means specifically with regards to the legal representative that certain property might be in the possession of the legal representative, but not all property of the legal representative. Therefore, there needs to be a certain inventory specified which belongs to the judgment debtor for the enforcement and execution and sale of that property. So in this particular order and this particular rule, the legal representative is not included within the definition of judgment debtor. This is basically it. If you guys didn't understand anything, just let me know. Does anyone have any questions or anything which they are not very clear with? What's the present status or anything?
I think that was very thorough, and I'm happy that you got to present on something. See, I remember yesterday you had more of a very sure view that a judgment debtor would include a surety. So the rule is, as I'm sure you've explained so well, that as a general rule they won't be, right? But in some circumstances, somewhere, then the liability of a surety can be brought into the context of a judgment debtor.
Yes, so that is it. So generally, legal representative won't be included in the definition of a judgment debtor, but there are certain rules wherein a legal representative can be included in the definition of a judgment debtor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. We followed, Ankur. Thank you. It was a very good presentation. And सबको I hope समझ में आया कि कौन सी situations में एक judgment debtor surety को include कर सकता है और कौन सी में नहीं. Okay? किसी और की कोई presentation due है अभी?
Sir, I was supposed to research on how surety can be withdrawn.
So could you? Yeah, you need some time.
No, I will. So, section 144 of CRPC provides for it, discharge of sureties. And it says that in order to withdraw the surety bond, one has to apply to the magistrate and he can then ask the accused to be arrested on warrant and brought before him, after which he provides him with the option to choose a different surety, and if he fails to do that, he may just put him in jail.
Okay. So are you saying that the CRPC provision would also apply to civil law related sureties? Have you been able to look at it? Yeah, you want to look at it एक बार before getting back to me on this very important query.
Yeah, I think so, because this is what I found on
Go back
this
and
thing.
इस पर थोड़ा सोचना. That's a correct answer कि आपको जो CRPC में provision laid down है उसके through आप अपना surety withdraw करो. But would that also apply? Would that magisterial process also apply to a civil suit? You know, go back and revert on this tomorrow. Yes, Simran,
Oh.
did you have तुम्हें कुछ करना था क्या?
Yes, so basically I had to, find out whether men's profit would include, mesne profit would include,
Okay, mesne profit, yes.
pronunciation. Mesne profit would include rent or not.
मैं कह रहा हूँ, are you able to answer that अभी and you need some more time to come back with your answer?
I can answer that, right?
हाँ, तो please go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to begin a little with the history because that will explain the
Okay.
answer.
But try to be within 4 to 5 minutes, okay?
Yes, sir. So basically the concept of mesne profits originated in the medieval period under the feudal system where the king owned all the land and he let it out to, the soldiers and all as a condition. Yeah, he lent out these land to his barons on the condition that they will provide him soldiers whenever he wanted an army. So soon this, turned into a way of raising money by charging rent for the land. So in return, the barons would further lend out the land to tenant farmers who would then pay them rent, usually in kind like livestock or crops, for the privilege of, keeping some produce for themselves. Thus, the concept of chains of tenancies was born. So the person to whom they paid rent became known as the mesne landlord, and the word meant intermediate in old French. Anyway, so now the phrase was originally mesne rents and profits, meaning all the rent or profit from the land that could be extracted by the landlord. Now, in the modern time, the mesne profit means that a claim that a lawful owner of the property has against the unlawful possessor of the property. So, in short, rents can be considered if somebody is not paying their rent and they are upholding it, then it can be counted as mesne profits. And there is a case also. I hope everyone got the history part.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. So now the case was of Bhagwati Prasad versus Sri Chandramal. In this case, so basically what happened in this case was there were two cross appeals which arose from a suit filed by Chandramal in the court of Second Civil Judge Kanpur. The plaintiff alleged that he was the owner of the house and he had let it out on rent to the defendant as his tenant on a monthly rent of rupees 450 per month. And the defendant continued to pay the rent and was not in arrears in that behalf, but till as on the 31st of March 1954. Thereafter, he failed to pay the rent, and so the plaintiff terminated his tenancy and brought the suit into court. So he claimed an ejectment against the defendant and a decree of rupees 8,550 of the rent from the suit that was competent, and came to the conclusion that the plaintiff was entitled to a decree. So in this regard, the amount of rent, the learned trial judge did not accept the plaintiff's version and considered the question on merits. He held that the 300 per month would be a reasonable rent for the premises in question and passed a decree of 5,700 in his favor. But then they took up this matter in the High Court. So this matter was taken up in the High Court as well as the Supreme Court. And the High Court, did away with the decree of the Kanpur court, and it said that insofar as it is directed the defendant to pay past rent on the rate of rupees 300 per month in that connection, they referred to the provision of the UP Control Rent Eviction Act and said that the material provisions of this act requires that no premises could be let out by the landlord without the permissions of the district magistrate or other appropriate authorities mentioned. Thus, the tenancy not having been proved would be inappropriate to allow any rent to the plaintiff at all. But then again, what happened in the Supreme Court was that the Honorable Supreme Court, while confirming the decree passed by the High Court, dismissed the appeal preferred by the defendant and observed that plaintiff was entitlement to the possession of the said land. And it said, we see no reason to interfere with the decree passed by the High Court, but we do not see how the High Court's decree in relation to future mezneh profits can be sustained, because once it is held that the plaintiff is entitled to eject the defendant, it follows that from the date of the decree of granting the relief of ejectment of the plaintiff, the defendant who remains in possession of that property despite the decree must pay mezneh profits or damages for use and occupation of the said property. I hope that was clear. So basically, to sum it up, the Supreme Court said that yes, the tenant who is not liable to pay till the point he is staying there and he is not ejected. But once he is ejected and a decree has been passed, and despite the decree being passed, he is not paying the rent, then he is liable to pay that, and that would be counted as mezneh profits.
Has everybody followed this? Because I think it's a very important concept. Ab CPC पढ़ रहे हो. In fact, anything in civil law, mezneh profits will keep coming back to us. So if you were to like sum up and conclude your entire presentation in say 2 sentences, what would they be, Simran?
So first, in mezneh profits, the main element is wrongful possession. So there has to be some kind of wrongful possession or withholding of any profit or rent. And specifically coming to what I spoke about, rent of any form, if it is withheld from the rightful owner of that property, then it will be counted as mezneh profits.
Okay, thank you, Simran. That was very helpful. Is there any further presentation, or should we now start? I think we should. There's no further presentation. Before we do a short Q&A, I have sent some photos on your WhatsApp group, and I think Kaveri has volunteered also to help me share those photographs. So if you remember yesterday, some of you had requested me to show you what does a decree look like and what does a judgment and order look like. So can somebody share that on the screen here? Like, do you know how to share your screen? I tried doing that, I really don't.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, can you make me a presenter, please?
Okay, do I have that power? Let me see. I can only mute you. I can make you my host. Should I do that?
Yes.
I hope you will not take down Lossico after doing that.
No.
No. You are now the host.
Okay,
Are you?
just give me. Yes, just give me a minute. Are you able to see now?
Okay. So guys, this is on your screen. I hope none of you are like alien to Hindi, because in most district courts except some Delhi, Bangalore courts, you will find the proceedings in English. Of course, some judges are adopting English proceedings. I was trying to look for an English worded decree, but I wasn't able to get it, but I readily found this. So if you can zoom in. Okay. So can anyone tell me, Acha, is there anyone who doesn't absolutely understand Hindi? No one? Okay. I'm just going to read this, okay? Kaveri, thoda aur zoom in karna. This is very important, guys. It will help you understand how things are. मूल वाद में आज्ञप्ति श्रीमती उर्मिला वर्मा, आयु लगभग 80 वर्ष, बनाम, सबको सुनाई दे रहा है? Is everybody able to understand? मतलब at least here?
I can hear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
बनाम श्रीमती रेणु भट्टाधार, wife of Bhatnagar, sorry, Renu Bhatnagar, wife of Tarun Bhatnagar, and number 2 is Kumari Shashi Kohli, daughter of Swargiya Manohar Lal. So this is Urmila Verma's case against Renu Bhatnagar and Shashi Kohli. Okay. टिप्पणी, जो पते ऊपर लिखे गए हैं वो पक्षकारों ने जो उपस्थित नहीं हुए तामील के प्रयोजन से दाखिल किए हैं. As in the people have given their addresses and everything on their own, so they are responsible for the addresses given. Then it says विभाजन निषेधाज्ञा के लिए दावा मूल्यांकन 7,56,000 7,56,000, which means कि इस सूट का उन्होंने एक वैल्यूएशन किया है which is this much. ठीक है. Now read अनुतोष. एक कोई पढ़ना चाहेगा? Does anyone want to volunteer to read this stuff Hindi? मतलब it will help you generally. It's good to know languages and especially.
Sir, I can read.
हाँ, try. अनुतोष पढ़ो.
Okay, so it says, can you zoom in a little bit? It's a little. So it says अनुतोष यह कि
वाद पत्र की सूची में वर्णित
पत्र की सूची में वर्णित संपत्ति को विभाजित, so what's the word?
विभाजित
विभाजित किया
जावे
तथा विधानी का वादिनी. Sir, I can't see very clearly. I don't know why.
ओके. वादिनी का 1/3 भाग घोषित किया जावे तथा वादिनी को उसके 1/3 विभाजित भाग पर What does it say?
आरोप किया जाए.
Very good. And
यह कि प्रतिभोग्य उनके नौकर, एजेंट, हेड, प्रतिनिधि इत्यादि के स्थायी व्यदेश द्वारा निश्चित किया जाए कि वह वाद पत्र की सूची में वर्णित संपत्ति के किसी विशिष्ट भाग को विकृत करे और ना ही इसका कारण बने.
So can anybody tell me the meaning of this?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first point it says is that it is declared that the plaintiff is now entitled to a partition of 1/3 of the property in question. जब वो कह रहे हैं ना सूची में वर्णित संपत्ति को विभाजित किया जावे तथा वादिनी का 1/3 भाग घोषित किया जावे तथा वादिनी को उसके 1/3 विभाजित भाग पर आरूढ़ किया जाए. Not only is it a suit for declaration, it is also a suit for ownership. अभी उस पे हम फर्क पढ़ेंगे. Declare कर दिया कि 1/3 is of the plaintiff और declare कर दिया कि 1/3 is owned by her. Second, यह कि प्रतिवादियों, which means the opposite parties, the defendants, उनके नौकर, agent, हित प्रतिनिधि, like their शुभ चिंतक and their, the people who are protecting their interests, इत्यादि को स्थायी व्यवदेश द्वारा निषिद्ध किया जावे कि वह वाद पत्र की सूची में वर्णित संपत्ति के किसी विभक्त भाग को विकृत करें और न ही इसका कारण बने, which means that they can only sell any portion if they want to, only of the 2/3 property and not of this 1/3 property. सबको समझ में आया इस केस में क्या हुआ? Number 1, she has been declared partition हो गया उस प्रॉपर्टी का, 1/3 उसको मिल गया, और दूसरा उनके एजेंट वगैरह को बोल दिया कि आप केवल अपने 2/3 का सेल वेल कर सकते हो, इस 1/3 का नहीं कर सकते हो. समझ में आ गया? Everybody is clear?
Yes, sir.
Now my question to you is, where is it written that this is a decree?
सर इसमें ग्राउंड्स नहीं दिए और एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं है, तो मे बी इट इज अ कंक्लूसिव होल्डिंग with respect to the rights and liabilities of the party.
That's an interesting observation, Monica. Now tell me, is this a decree? I'm trying to activate the judge in you. There is something here which, it's clear it's a decree. It almost says so.
So this may be preliminary
It's
decree.
called Banam.
बनाम तो ये हुआ कि it is against, वो तो ऑर्डर में भी हो सकता है. I think somebody said preliminary final पे तो चलो उतना वो नहीं है अभी question कि ये preliminary है या ये final है. I
So
know,
because there has been a determination of rights.
what are the 5 constituents of a decree?
So formal expression, determination of conclusive determination, rights of the parties, adjudication, and must be an adjudication and adjudication of a suit.
Are you sure? और क्या क्या
Yeah.
है पांचों एग्जैक्ट क्या क्या है यही है? Can anybody
Yeah.
repeat 5 एक बार फिर से?
I'll repeat.
They must, yeah.
बोलो.
So the first one is there must be an adjudication. Second one is adjudication must be in a suit. Third one is it must have determined the rights of the parties. Fourth is such determination must be a conclusive determination, and fifth is it should be formal expression.
Okay. Now tell me, does this have all the ingredients? Very good. जो जिस फ्रेम में ये अभी सेट किया है ना कावेरी ने, there's something which is clearly telling me whether it's a decree or not. It says so. Where is it? And let
Sir,
me tell
I
you,
think,
it's
sir,
not
it
about
doesn't.
Hindi
No,
or
sorry.
English. You will get
sir,
to.
it's an
बोलो.
order. आदेश लिखा हुआ है.
So the first word is मूलवाद में आकृति.
ये किसने कहा it's an order आदेश लिखा हुआ है?
So सौम्या.
Okay. Maybe that's a very big hint. What is this? Tell me quickly, everybody.
Interim order.
You think it's
Or-
interim?
I mean,
Will valuation be there in an interim order? Should I just tell you what I'm talking about? Yeah, you want to think about
yes,
it.
sir.
Everybody, Ankur has given me the answer. What about the others? What about the others?
What does Anutosh mean?
Probably Nirnay. Guys, I thought you would like catch on to what Soumya said. What did she say?
He said Adesh.
अरे उसके आगे पढ़ो. इधर
अच्छा,
ब्रॉड करो उसको.
third word.
इसको बड़ा करो. कावेरी.
So it's a decree. It says order 2 rule 6-7.
Go a little up.
हाँ ऊपर जाना थोड़ा. कावेरी. इसको ऊपर.
As in the heading part of it.
हाँ. हेडिंग दिखाना कावेरी एक बार फिर से.
So this is heading. मूलवाद में
हाँ.
आकृति.
What is Order 20 Rule 6-7? Just quickly open it. It's a decree. And Order 2 बोल रही हो सौम्या तुम उसको. Order 20 Rule 6-7. Can anybody read Order 20 Rule 6-7? What does it deal
Yes,
with?
sir. Rule 6 says contents of decree.
Yes, it's a decree, right?
Yes.
At times, when you have these documents before you, you can get baffled. अरे ये क्या language है? ये कैसे समझूं मैं? ये है ही क्या? Right? And especially guys, preparing for a judiciary exam, theoretical concepts and all, cool. Maybe when you get through also. Training mein, when you'll actually see a court and all of that, these things can get very overwhelming. So this is a decree. It says it is a decree. Okay, how does it say it's a decree? It refers to Order 20 Rule 6-7, which deals with decree. Okay, I think this deals with contents of decree and date of decree वगैरह वाले provisions हैं 6-7. आप लोग मार्क कर सकते हो. दूसरा अगर आप कावेरी इसका एक ओवरऑल व्यू वाली पिक्चर पे आ जाना जिसमें ऊपर से दिखे. ठीक है. It's a decree which clarifies the partition of the property, the ownership and the right to sale. Okay, so it is conclusively determining the rights of parties. Okay, and it is something which fulfills all the 5 constituents of a decree. Now please note this one very important thing. How is a decree different from a judgment or order, and how does it work? A decree is a formal expression. A judgment need not be a formal expression. A judgment may go, or an order may go into much detail, may talk about various things, positives, negatives, opinions, obiters. इन चीजों में ऑर्डर हो जाता है. डिक्री को पॉइंट टू पॉइंट बात करनी होती है. कंक्लूसिवली उसे राइट्स ऑफ पार्टीज डिटरमिन करनी है. ठीक है. तो ये जो 5 इंग्रेडिएंट्स हैं अगर आप देखोगे इसमें ये क्लियरली अप्लाई होता है. नाउ जैसे लेट मी टेल यू, सपोज देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन. ठीक है. The question is, suppose there is a dispute of a property, okay, and there are two issues arising in the case. One is the valuation, because one party says it is valued at 10 lakh, the other party says it's valued at 50 lakh. Okay. So one issue is of valuation and the other issue is of ownership. Okay. Now, tell me this one thing. If the court rules on valuation, will that be called a decree? Either preliminary or final? Will that be called a decree? I couldn't hear you. Monica, क्या कह रही थी?
No, sir.
Sir, I said it won't be considered a decree.
Yes. Why? Why, Ankur? Why not? Why, Monica?
Sure, because that is for determining the jurisdiction of the court.
Okay, refine that answer more. Because?
It did not conclusively determine the rights of the
Yes, it did not conclusively determine the rights of the parties. The parties are not concerned with regard to, what you value. The parties are concerned with who owns it. So a decree will conclusively determine rights of parties, right? So for example, preliminary and final, इनको distinguish करना हो. Say in a partition suit, it is recognized, or say in a company, it is recognized that so and so and so, like these are the three main shareholders of such company, and their proportions are not spelt out. So till the time their proportions are not spelt out, such decree would operate as a preliminary decree, because the court may still have to make up its mind on proportions. Okay. Now that's a preliminary decree. When everything is set out, that's a final decree, and a final decree will always come after a final judgment. So when a final judgment comes, there is an operative portion in that said judgment. Okay. And that operative portion of the said judgment will be reproduced in the decree along with several other things to make it fall under the category of decree under section 2, subsection 2, read with order 20, rules 6 and 7. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I want
Just repeat the last part.
हाँ, मैं ये कह रहा हूँ, जजमेंट जो होता है वो आता है आपका लास्ट में. मैंने बताया ना, एक ही जजमेंट आता है, ऑर्डर्स का ही आते हैं, जजमेंट एक ही आता है. हो सकता है ऑर्डर भी एक ही आए, लेकिन जजमेंट तो एक ही आता है. जब जजमेंट आ जाता है, उसके बाद पार्टीज अप्लाई फॉर अ डिक्री. तो डिक्री जजमेंट का ऑपरेटिव पोर्शन लेगी, जहां पे राइट्स ऑफ पार्टीज को कंक्लूसिवली डिटरमाइन किया एक फॉर्मल एक्सप्रेशन के साथ, और उसके साथ ऑर्डर 20, रूल 6 एंड 7 की कंडीशंस को जोड़ के वो अपना एक डिक्री बनाएगी. ऑर्डर, ये कोई पढ़ सकते हैं ऑर्डर 20, रूल 6 एंड 7 क्विकली? कोई रीड कर सकते हैं?
Yes, so I'll read.
Read.
Rule 6, Contents of Decree. Subrule 1, the decree shall agree with the judgment. It shall contain the number of the suit, the names and descriptions of the parties, their registered addresses, and particulars of the claim, and shall specify clearly the relief granted or other determination of the suit. Subrule 2, the decree shall also state the amount of costs incurred in the suit, and by whom or out of what property and in what proportions such costs are to be paid. Subrule 3, the court may direct that the costs payable to one party by the other shall be set off against any sum which is admitted or found to be due from the former to the latter. So then there's Rule 6A and 6B too.
अगर लंबे नहीं है तो पढ़ो.
So they deal with preparation of decree and copies of judgments when to be made available.
पढ़ो.
Rule 6A, preparation of decree. Be made to ensure that the decree is drawn up as expeditiously as possible, and in any case within 15 days from the date on which the judgment is pronounced. Subrule 2, an appeal may be preferred against the decree without filing a copy of the decree, and in such a case the copy made available to the party by the court shall, for the purposes of Rule 1 of Order 41, be treated as a decree. But as soon as the decree is drawn, the judgment shall cease to have the effect of a decree for the purposes of execution or for any other purpose. Rule
Okay.
6b. Yes,
बोलो
sir.
बोलो. हाँ, go ahead.
Rule 6b, copies of judgments when to be made available. Where the judgment is pronounced, copies of the judgment shall be made available to the parties immediately after the pronouncement of the judgment for preferring an appeal on payment of such charges as may be specified in the rule made by the High Court. So Rule 7, may I read it?
Mm-hmm.
It deals with date of decree.
Mm-hmm.
The decree shall bear the date, the day on which the judgment was pronounced, and when the judge has satisfied himself that the decree has been drawn up in accordance with the judgment, he shall sign the decree.
Okay. Now, if you look at it with a microscopic lens, you might see कि जो ऑर्डर 6 की कुछ कंडीशंस हैं कि किसकी कितनी कॉस्ट एटसेट्रा, वो इसने वैल्यूएशन की ब्रॉड हेडिंग में कर दी अपनी तरफ से, राइट? नाउ आई एम ट्राइंग टू सी इन माय रिकॉर्ड्स कि क्या मेरे पास इसका एक सेकंड पेज भी था. मे बी इट हैज द विवरण ऑफ द कि एग्जैक्टली किसकी कितनी कॉस्ट थी. मैं जस्ट देखने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. अगर मुझे मिल जाता है तो मैं अभी आपको वो सेकंड पेज भी दिखा दूंगा, बट उसमें कुछ मेजर है नहीं, मतलब एक दो ही पेज की डिक्री होती है. अदरवाइज आई एम श्योर यू वुड अप्रिशिएट कि इसने बाकी सारी कंडीशंस फुलफिल करी. एंड ऑर्डर 20 रूल 6 एंड 7 को आप हमेशा याद रखना कि इसको सेक्शन 2 सबसेक्शन 2 के साथ आपको पढ़ना है अगर आपको डिक्री समझनी है क्या होती है. और मैं ये कह रहा हूँ डिक्री आती है लास्ट में, जजमेंट के बाद. पहले जजमेंट आ जाता है, उसके बाद पार्टीज डिक्री के लिए अप्लाई करती है ताकि क्रिस्टलाइज्ड फॉर्म में राइट्स आ जाएं. कई बार क्या होता है जब वेक्सेशियस प्रॉपर्टी डिस्प्यूट्स होते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू रीड द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट ऑन द अयोध्या प्रॉपर्टी डिस्प्यूट, तो वो बहुत सारी चीजों के बारे में बात करते हैं. लॉट ऑफ एविडेंस हैज लेड, लॉट ऑफ एप्लीकेशंस आर मूव्ड, एडजर्नमेंट्स टेकन एटसेट्रा. That is why parties can get confused. It is very important for the parties to have a crystallized form of the essence of what the court has held. And that is why, and at times, even courts get carried away with lot of using these very big words in, defining things and in their judgments. That is the importance of having a decree, and why we need decrees, and why decrees are so important, when you go in appeal, and to understand in crystallized form what the court has held, and with specificity. Is decree clear to all of you now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Now can somebody share the second page? कावेरी, क्या आप शेयर कर सकते हो जो मैंने सेकंड फोटो भेजी है?
Sure.
Very good. Now इसको, हाँ, now tell me, this is the same case, उर्मिला देवी बनाम रेणु भटनागर. Can you tell me, ऊपर से नीचे एक बार वाला व्यू देना कावे, इसको जस्ट आई होप एक बार जिसमें पूरा दिख रहा हो. हाँ, समथिंग लाइक दिस. ऊपर से देखो तो मोटा मोटा समझ में आ रहा है. न्यायालय चतुर्थ अपर सिविल जज श्रीमती उर्मिला देवी, दिनांक 10 फरवरी 2020. आदेश सचिन कुमार. व्हाट इज दिस?
So judgment.
Or is it an order? Or is it both?
Can you zoom in a little more? I'm kind of blind.
What?
They have very high power, so small screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's the judgment because it states in concise the whole facts and everything.
पत्रावली प्रस्तुत हुई, वाद पुकारा गया. वादिनी के विद्वान अधिवक्ता श्री कमल विरवानी एवं प्रतिवादी गण की ओर से विद्वान अधिवक्ता श्री राहुल नेगी उपस्थित हैं. उभय पक्ष के द्वारा समझौता नामा प्रपत्र संख्या 18A1 इस आशय के से प्रस्तुत कर कथन किया गया कि उक्त संधि पत्र के अनुसार पक्षकार अपने अपने भाग में अध्यासित हो गए हैं और उन्होंने संपत्ति को विभाजित कर लिया है तथा पक्षकारों में किसी प्रकार का कोई विवाद शेष नहीं रहा है. अतः याचना की गई कि उपरोक्त संधि के प्रकाश में वर्तमान वाद निर्णीत करने की कृपा करें. पक्षकार न्यायालय में उपस्थित हैं. वादिनी की पहचान विद्वान अधिवक्ता श्री कमल विरवानी एवं प्रतिवादीगण की पहचान विद्वान अधिवक्ता श्री राहुल नेगी द्वारा की गई. पक्षकारों ने समझौता नामा प्रपत्र संख्या 18A1 को सुनकर व समझकर हस्ताक्षरित व स्वीकृत किया है. तदुपरांत उक्त समझौता नामा प्रपत्र संख्या 18A1 न्यायालय द्वारा सत्यापित किया गया. अतः वर्तमान परिस्थितियों में यह वाद समझौता नामा प्रपत्र संख्या 18A1 की शर्तों के अनुरूप निर्णीत होने योग्य है। आदेश वादिनी का वाद समझौता नामा प्रपत्र संख्या 18A1 के आधार पर निस्तारित किया जाता है। समझौता नामा प्रपत्र संख्या 18A1 डिक्री का भाग होगा। पक्षकार अपना वाद व्यय स्वयं वहन करेंगे। पत्रावली बाद आवश्यक कार्यवाही अभिलेखागार संचित हो। What this means is the decree we just read, this is the dash of the decree or the dash of the decree or the dash and dash of the decree. Is this an order? Is this a judgment? Is this both a judgment and order? It is one of these three. What is it?
Sir, I think it's an order because I did not see the reasoning given in this
Okay.
page. Maybe I did not understood it properly.
So let me tell you in English what it meant, what I just read out. It meant that the case was called and there seems to have been some kind of a compromise that has taken place between both parties. Both parties are in possession of their particular parcels of land that they have claimed. Both parties are accepting each other's possession. Both parties have jointly floated this kind of a compromise. Both parties are not pressing for costs in the matter, and both parties just want this particular case to close in the light of the compromise that has been jointly filed by both parties. This is what this is saying. Now, I am asking you, what do you think this is? Is this an order? Is this a judgment? Is this both?
An order and judgment both.
Order.
Anybody else?
So I think order.
So even I feel it's an order.
So I'm very happy I could share something like this with you. So let me tell you, एक बार इसका पूरा वाला व्यू दिखाना फिर से कावेरी. हाँ. This is what we call an order and judgment. This is both. See, a judgment need not always be very extensive. It need not always deal with all the conditions that, you know, I made you write. I think it was subsection 9 of section 2. It need not always deal with all those conditions. However, at times when a compromise is floated, courts don't feel the need to go into a lot of those details. And therefore, courts just record the basic contentions made by both parties in order to close the matter. And in the light of the said compromise, the court has closed the matter. So, इस तरीके से court इसको close करता है. Yes, I think I've got the second page. Kaveri, can you like put it up? I have just sent it to your WhatsApp group. So this is both a judgment and order. Why? Because judgment and order है ये क्योंकि ये final आ गया है. इसने एक ऐसा आदेश दे दिया है और इस दिन की शर्तों से निर्णीत होने योग्य है. He has said कि it is decided based on the compromise floated. So this is both a judgment and order because there's nothing left after this order. Not all, see, most final orders become judgments because, you know, उसके बाद जब कुछ होना ही नहीं है तो फिर क्या होगा, वो जजमेंट हो जाएगा. लेकिन जजमेंट्स कभी-कभी लंबे भी आते हैं जिसमें सारी चीजें लिखी होती है जब हॉटली कंटेस्टेड सूट होता है. सिंस आई हैव शेयर्ड विद यू जजमेंट, ऑर्डर एंड डिक्री, जिसमें उन्होंने लास्ट में एक वो करा समझौता नामा.
So shall I close this and open
you
the
can
other
close this. Any questions of anyone? सबको समझ में आया क्यों जजमेंट एंड ऑर्डर दोनों हैं?
Yes, sir. I understand.
ओके, इसको बड़ा करो एक बार. सो देखो ये उसका शायद सेकंड पेज है. इफ यू सी, जो हमारी डिक्री थी, मैंने कहा था ना उसका सेकंड पेज भी होगा. तो देखो टूल लिखा हुआ है, वही नाम वाद किसके लिए है और व्हाटएवर, एंड आदेश वादिनी का वाद समझौता प्रपत्र. देखो, दे हैव कॉपीड द ऑपरेटिव पोर्शन ऑफ द जजमेंट एंड ऑर्डर एंड दिस इज अ पार्ट नाउ ऑफ द डिक्री, राइट? सो अ फाइनल डिक्री is lifting from the judgment and order the operative portion which crystallizes that right. As I told you, a decree, the first line you see, it's a formal expression. A judgment need not always be a quote unquote formal expression. It may be an expression about various other things. Therefore, the formal expression part of a judgment is fished out and it becomes a part of a decree. Okay? And for a preliminary decree, the formal expression part of an order is fished out and it becomes a part of the preliminary decree. And partly preliminary, partly final, again, of a डिक्री ऑफ एन ऑर्डर जो एक स्टेज पर पास किया किसी कोर्ट ने, बट एक फाइनल एडजुडिकेशन ऐसा कर दिया जो आगे तक के लिए भी राइट्स ऑफ पार्टीज तो क्रिस्टलाइज करके बैठा ही है. फॉर दैट पर्पस पार्टली प्रिलिमिनरी पार्टली फाइनल वो ऑर्डर से आया, एक फाइनल डिक्री एक जजमेंट से आई. सबको समझ में आया ये सब?
So I have a question,
यस.
more like an observation actually. So a decree is basically a formalized synopsis of the judgment,
Very true, very correct.
like so that I can have it clear in my head.
Yes, you have said it. So in a way, I have been saying it for an hour. So yes. But I just thought, it could be helpful for all of you to actually see how these things are. At times, when we do it only in theory, उतना समझ नहीं आता, theoretical understanding लेकर हम बैठ जाते हैं. तो मुझे मेरा स्क्रीन वापस दे दोगे क्या तुम, कावेरी?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Monica, go ahead.
So, sir, अगर जो matter at hand है, तो if that does not involve any like a crucial or substantial or difficult question of law, so जो judgment है उसमें जो मेरी understanding of reasoning थी अब तक, तो I used to think कि judgment always has to like deal in detail with the law and law has to be specified. But जो अभी हमने read किया order and judgment, so was it because the facts were very matlab, there was no need to get into the law, so therefore the factual reasoning was given in the judgment and order and that was sufficient. So जो reasoning होती है, does it always have to be with respect to law or can the reasoning be with respect to the facts and law also?
Okay. Let me share another example, not of a civil court. Okay, not of a civil court, but of a high court with you. Can anyone share what I am sending to your group? That's a very good question, and it's important, that you get clarity on it. इसको कोई प्लीज अपने स्क्रीन में खोल दो, जो मैंने अभी आपको भेजा है PDF document. Can someone open it? क्या कोई खोल सकता है उसे?
So you make me a host first.
Okay.
I can share.
किसको मुझे होस्ट बनाना है? कावेरी को?
Kaveri, yes.
Okay.
Monica, can you repeat your question till then once again?
Okay, sure. My question was, जो judgment में we read no that judgment specifies the ground for a decree and there has to be a reason why a particular court gave the judgment. So my question was, जो reasoning दी होती है judgment में, does it always have to do with the law? कि the law says so and therefore this judgment, or can, if the matter is of trivial nature or does not include any specific question of law, so can the reasoning be based on facts also कि अच्छा facts में ऐसा हुआ था, so something of the sort. I hope you got my question.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
So, Kaveri, can you share it?
So just give me a minute. Sir, I cannot share PDF format through my mobile.
Okay. Chalo, khair. All of you are on WhatsApp. If you can just open up that order and judgment, because that was the final order and judgment passed therein. So the short answer to your question, Monica, but a very important one is 95% of all judgments are coming with an order, which means they are not detailed. So what happens is courts are so overburdened in India, hardly are they able to comply with the high standards for judgment as specified by the Civil Procedure Code. So what they do is they just try to fulfill the barest minimum and close matters. So yes, for matters which they may think of as trivial, for most matters, in fact, for an overwhelming majority, I would say 95%, judgments come in order format and they just close matters. However, when issues are contested, when issues are several, when a lot of things have to be discussed, it is then that judgments, come with all the detail and panache. Otherwise, judgments don't. I would have actually shown you an example of an order and judgment of the High Court and how it was also final, because it was in English. You may have understood it was a service matter. They just said that, okay, you move a representation and we will decide an order of that kind. It's there on your WhatsApp. Did any of you just go through it? Like, did you open it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I think we can now come back to our wherever we were. We were at subsection.
So I have a doubt which is not really related to this,
Tell me.
which is for our for the purpose of exam, Hindi preparation should do we have to know this kind of Hindi, because this just looks
No,
like
no,
a
no, no.
difficult version of normal Hindi.
No, 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 no. You don't need to know for the purpose of your exam this kind of Hindi. But let me tell you in absolute uncertain terms, actually when you sit in courts, the answer is yes. You need to do this and much more kind of difficult Hindi. However, let me tell you, I also am largely more English speaking, and I also found it very difficult when I first saw this kind of Hindi. But over time, when you get to know that actually there are just these few select Hindi words that are difficult, and then when you use them, it becomes a part of your language, then you get absolutely fluent with both languages. In fact, you feel that confidence, you can understand things. Because see, as a litigating lawyer, I meet different kinds of clients. There are most polished clients, who know everything about English and they can talk to me, brief me in English. But then there are people who will come to me with Vakil Saab mode and, just show me their papers which are in complete Hindi. And half the time I don't have any clue about what they're talking about, but I act very confident because I know at least, okay, the broad terms, what what they want to tell me. So in a courtroom, yes, this is the kind of Hindi you would mostly be seeing. But with younger judges coming into the fray, that's changing. It's fast changing. So say if 5 years ago or say 10 years ago, 90% of judges wrote in Hindi. Now I think that's down to 70 to 75. And I think it will keep going down as more people of your age become young judges.
Okay, so
But I hope this was helpful for all of you. Was it? Like just
yes,
seeing how
sir.
these things are?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm glad. The people who couldn't attend this class, उनको बहुत loss हुआ है, I feel. मतलब this class at least, this first hour. तो कौन है जैसे वो issue हो गया, माहिम, गुराव, मुस्कान. Please ask them, to watch the first hour at least. I think it's important because what this will do is it will clear concepts. Hirdesh, समझ में आया?
Yes, sir.
Jolly?
Yes, sir.
पक्का फॉलो किया ना हर चीज? डिक्री, ऑर्डर, जजमेंट देखा?
जी 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 सर.
जूही
Yes, sir.
सब समझ में आया?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. तो हाँ, who would read further? We had read till Mesne Prophets, right?
Yes, sir.
Mesne Prophets और अभी सिमरन ने बहुत अच्छे से समझा भी दिया. तो let me just see if I can, give you some case law on it if required.
Sir, yesterday you were telling us the pointers where decree could be passed for Mesne Profits. You gave us 1 point just against a tenant who refuses to vacate a property after
Oh, yes.
termination.
हाँ. तो मैं तुम्हें बता रहा था some pointers, right? तो मैंने कहा against a tenant who refuses to vacate the premises after the termination of tenancy. Write down a second point. It can be passed against a trespasser. It can be passed against a trespasser, both mala fide and bona fide. Now, what does this mean? It means कि कोई trespass कर रहा है या तो उसको पता ही ना हो कि भाई ये किसी की प्रॉपर्टी है, या उसको पता हो कि ये किसी की प्रॉपर्टी है. जब पता ही ना हो तो वो कैसा ट्रेसपासर होगा? बोनाफाइड. और जब पता हो तो वो कैसा ट्रेसपासर होगा? मैलिफाइड. बोनाफाइड एंड मैलिफाइड तो सब समझते हैं?
Yes, sir.
In
Yes,
good
sir.
faith, in bad faith. Does anybody know the meaning of eubrema fight?
In utmost good faith.
Very good. And ऐसी क्या होता है मैलाफाइड का in utmost bad faith? Mala amino? I'm not remembering now. But remember these words, these terms. You can use them in your answers. It makes them good. Okay. So मैंने 2 points बता दिए आपको. Third point लिखो. Against a person against whom a decree of possession has been passed. Against a person against whom a decree for possession, sorry, not of, for possession has been passed. These are the people, these are the instances where a decree for mesne profits can be passed against a tenant who refuses to vacate the premises after termination of tenancy. Number 2, it can be passed against a trespasser. mesne profit समझे ना, wrongful possession से gain कर रहा है वो, wrongful possession से. तो एक टेनेंट जो ऐसे गेन कर रहा है, एक ट्रेसपासर जो ऐसे गेन कर रहा है. और नंबर 3 मैंने आपको बताया, अगेंस्ट अ पर्सन अगेंस्ट हुम अ डिक्री फॉर पोजेशन हैज बीन पास्ड, यानी कि उसके खिलाफ डिक्री है कि तुम पोजेस नहीं कर सकते हो, छोड़ो उस जगह को, तब भी वो लेकर बैठा हुआ है, उसके खिलाफ भी हो सकता है. नंबर 4, अगेंस्ट अ मॉर्टगेजर in possession of the mortgaged property after a decree for foreclosure has been passed against him. Who can explain this to the class in simple language? Against a mortgager in possession of the mortgaged property after a decree for foreclosure has been passed against him.
After a decree of foreclosure has been passed against him.
Yes. What does this mean in simple language?
So mortgage property को बेचने का मतलब ऑर्डर आ चुका है बिकॉज उसने लोन या जो भी वो पे नहीं किया वापस, तो फिर भी द पर्सन इज इन रॉन्गफुल पोसेशन पर.
पर बहुत तेज नहीं बोला मोनिका तुमने.
I can repeat it.
Sir, I think
So
that's-
this means कि suppose मेरी mortgage property थी एंड मैंने उसके अगेंस्ट कोई लोन ले रखा था, तो फिर मैंने लोन रीपे नहीं किया एंड वो प्रॉपर्टी को बेचने का डिक्री आ चुकी है, फिर भी मैं उस मॉर्गेज प्रॉपर्टी पे पोसेशन मैंने ले रखा है अभी तक.
सबने समझ में आया, नहीं समझ में आया किसी को?
Yes, sir.
Understood, sir.
सबको समझ में आ गया. गुड.
Sir, समझ आ गया. Could you please repeat the point? What you said?
The point was, against a mortgager in possession of the mortgaged property after a decree for foreclosure has been passed against him. That was the point. So you can keep in mind these 4 kinds of examples where a decree for mesne profits can be passed, instances. Okay, you can keep them in mind. Achha, apart from this, you should also know how is the assessment of mesne profit. How is the assessment of mesne profits largely carried out? Know this thing, that the test is not what the plaintiff has lost by being out of possession, but what the defendant gained or might reasonably and with ordinary prudence have gained by such wrongful possession. It means कि mesne profits जब हम measure कर रहे हैं, तो मेजर इस चीज का नहीं है कि जो लॉस हो रहा है प्लेंटिफ का, जो mesne profits खाता अदरवाइज, मतलब जो प्रॉफिट खाता राइटफुली प्लेंटिफ, वो रॉन्गफुली एक डिफेंडेंट mesne profits खा रहा है ना. तो टेस्ट ये नहीं है कि प्लेंटिफ का क्या लॉस हो रहा है, टेस्ट ये है कि डिफेंडेंट को क्या गलत तरीके से मिल रहा है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई ओन लैंड ए को ओन करके मैं जी रहा था अभी तक, और मेरी जगह कोई और आया और वो लैंड ए को अब रॉन्गफुली पोजेस करने लग गया, और जो मेरी टेनेंसी थी और जो सारी मेरी बिल्डिंग पे चीजें थी, अब उसका मजा वो ले रहा है. ही इज गेटिंग द रेंट एंड ऑल. सो द मेजर ऑफ mesne profits would be all the illegal benefits he is getting. It will not be अगर मैं होता तो मुझे क्या लॉस हो रहा है, मेरा क्या प्रिजम्पटिव लॉस हो रहा है, एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट जो हमने कल डिस्कस किया, वो नहीं मेजर होगा. मेजर ये होगा कि डिफेंडेंट क्या गलत कर रहा है और अपना क्या फायदा उठा रहा है. इट्स अ वेरी गुड केस ऑफ द पटना हाई कोर्ट, द्वारका राय वर्सेस लक्ष्मी नारायण. द्वारका राय वर्सेस लक्ष्मी नारायण, AIR 1979, पटना 11. ओके, इसको कौन प्रिपेयर करके आ सकता है कल?
Sir, I didn't get the last part. My network was not stable.
हाँ, मैं समझा नहीं क्या.
Sir, I didn't get the last part. My network was.
मैंने केस डिक्टेट किया द्वारका राय वर्सेस लक्ष्मी नारायण AIR 1979 पटना 11, जिसमें मैंने आपको बताया जो अभी कि मेस्ने प्रॉफिट्स डिपेंड्स ऑन किसी इंसान को अपने रॉन्गफुल पोजीशन से क्या मिल रहा है उसका मेजर. इट डज नॉट डिपेंड ऑन किसी इंसान को क्या लॉस हो रहा है क्योंकि उसकी प्रॉपर्टी किसी और के पास है. समझ में आया जूही? ओके. हु विल प्रिपेयर दिस केस? Soumya, you want to do it? Soumya?
Sure, sir, I'll do
Please
it.
write the case in the chat box.
Can someone write the case in the chat box?
I'll write it, sir.
Good, thank you. Okay. Now, please also note down some principles that should guide a court in determining whether mesne profits should be allowed or not. There are 3 principles. First, a wrongful possessor should not profit by his possession. एक गलत तरीके से ऑक्यूपाई कर रहे बंदे को अपने गलत काम के लिए प्रॉफिट नहीं होना चाहिए. That's number 1. Number 2, restoration of status before dispossession of the rightful owner. You remember the very first class of CPC we had, हमने कहा था कि सूट फॉर रेस्टिट्यूशन. रेस्टिट्यूशन एक ऑब्जेक्ट है, गोल है सिविल लॉ का. सिविल लॉ में कई जगह रेस्टिट्यूशन पॉसिबल है. क्या क्रिमिनल लॉ में रेस्टिट्यूशन पॉसिबल है?
No, sir. No, sir.
क्राइम तो हो गया, यहां पॉसिबल है. इसीलिए दूसरा जो है मेस्ने प्रॉफिट्स अलाउ करने या नहीं अलाउ करने हैं, इसका दूसरा बड़ा सिद्धांत होता है कि रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ स्टेटस बिफोर डिस्पोजेशन ऑफ द राइटफुल ओनर. हाँ सिमरन बोलो.
So from restoration, I remembered I joined 5 minutes late, so I don't know if somebody answered or not. You had asked us whether section 2 subclause 5 is retrospective in nature.
So what do you think? You were the only one who thought it could be.
Yeah,
So you still think so?
maybe partially, not in the fullest sense.
Okay. Did I ask someone to read up about it and come? I think so. I did.
Do a presentation. I think.
Yes, sir. I was to read on it.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Kal we will know that.
yes,
Yes, Simran. Monica has
Yes.
told us that she will be preparing more tonight and she will be getting back to us tomorrow. So she will tell us tomorrow. Okay. So 2 points लिखे आपने, मैं third बता रहा हूँ अब. The use to which the rightful owner would have put the land if he was himself in possession. Now please understand, many of you might feel that एक तरफ मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि प्लेंटिफ के लॉस से मत कंप्यूट करो मेस्ने प्रॉफिट, कंप्यूट करो डिफेंडेंट के गेन से. और एक तरफ मैं आपको ये प्रिंसिपल बता रहा हूं, द यूज टू विच द राइटफुल ओनर वुड हैव पुट द लैंड इफ ही वाज हिमसेल्फ इन पोजीशन. It seems contradictory, but if you understand, it's not contradictory, it is sequential. Okay, the first thing which comes over here is defendant ka wrongful possession, uska wrongful gain, that helps us determine mesne profits. The second thing is restoration. The third thing in this tally, first, second, third, the third thing in this tally is जो plaintiff उसको यूज करके सही तरीके से कमाता, वो थर्ड चीज आता है. सो इट्स अ सीक्वेंशियल थिंग. इट स्टार्ट्स विद द प्लेंटिफ वाला थिंग, विद द डिफेंडेंट का रॉन्ग, एंड देन इट एंड्स विद द प्लेंटिफ का लॉस. इज दैट क्लियर? ओके.
Sir, I didn't get the third point. Could you please explain again?
द थर्ड पॉइंट इज, पहला तो था रॉन्गफुल पोजेसर को अपनी प्रॉफिट अपने पोजेशन से प्रॉफिट नहीं होना चाहिए. दूसरा था कि रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ स्टेटस होना चाहिए जो बिफोर डिस्पोजेशन था ऑफ राइटफुल ओनर. और तीसरा है द यूज टू विच द राइटफुल ओनर वुड हैव पुट द लैंड इफ ही वाज हिमसेल्फ इन पोजेशन. यानी कि जो राइटफुल ओनर है उस प्रॉपर्टी का, जो वो खुद से कर रहा होता, अगर उसके पास अपनी प्रॉपर्टी का पोजेशन होता, उसका उसे मेस्ने प्रॉफिट गेन मिलना चाहिए. इस 3 सूचीबद्ध तरीके से, क्रमबद्ध तरीके से, सीक्वेंशियल ऑर्डर में. सबसे पहले डिफेंडेंट को अपने रॉन्ग के लिए पनिश करो, स्टेटस को रिस्टोर करो, फिर जो प्लेंटिफ कर रहा होता, अगर उसके पास पोजीशन होता, उसको अकाउंट में लेते हुए आगे बढ़ो. ठीक है? Yes, Simran? Now, if you read section 2, subsection 12, very, very carefully. It also includes interest, right? So mesne profit consists of two items: profits of the property and interest on such profits. Now, if a decree awards mesne profits but is silent with regard to interest, such a decree is held to be carrying interest on mesne profits. If the court does not intend to award interest on mesne profits, it must say so. What does this mean? It means the interest automatically applies with mesne profit. And if interest does not have to apply with mesne profit, the court has to say so in the award. इसका जज हाँ, जैसे मान लो जूही की प्रॉपर्टी में मैं रॉन्गफुल पोजेस करके बैठा हूं 2 साल से, और मुझे मेसने प्रॉफिट्स जो हैं एक अक्रू हो गए 10 लाख रुपए के, और इन 2 साल में मैंने एक रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट क्लेम किया हुआ है प्लेंटिफ ने कि 10% था, यानी कि 10 लाख रुपए तो मेरा मेसने प्रॉफिट हुआ, और अलॉन्ग विद इंटरेस्ट जो टोटल अमाउंट ड्यू हुआ मेरा जूही को वो है 12 लाख रुपए। ठीक है, तो कोर्ट ने कहा कि मेसने प्रॉफिट तो है 10 लाख रुपए का बनता है, बट कोर्ट ने इंटरेस्ट की कोई बात नहीं कही। तो इन ऑर्डिनरी सर्कमस्टेंसेस तो आप बोलोगे जो कोर्ट ने नहीं कहा वो तो हम नहीं करेंगे, राइट, वो तो मान्य नहीं होगा। लेकिन मेसने प्रॉफिट के केस में इंटरेस्ट इज अज्यूम्ड अलोंग विद मेसने प्रॉफिट। तो अगर कोर्ट इंटरेस्ट को एक्सक्लूड करना चाह रहा है, इफ द कोर्ट वांट्स टू एक्सक्लूड द इंटरेस्ट अमाउंट, देन इट इज ऑन द ओनस इज ऑन द कोर्ट कि वो स्पेसिफिकली उस इंटरेस्ट अमाउंट को एक्सक्लूड करे। अदरवाइज मेसने प्रॉफिट के साथ इंटरेस्ट अपने आप आता है, तो मुझे देना होगा 12 लाख रुपए। तो आप इसका एक केस लिख लो चाहो, इट्स अ वेरी ओल्ड केस, गिरीश चंदर वर्सेस शशि। गिरीश चंदर CHUNDER, गिरीश CHUNDER वर्सेस शशि रॉय, 27 IA110. I think it's a Privy Council judgment. You can write down another
Sir, I
case
have a
along with
question.
this. Okay, just a second, मैं केस लिखवाता हूँ। महंत वर्सेस तिरुपति, AIR 1965, Supreme Court 1231. Can someone prepare a case note on Mahant versus Tirupati for tomorrow? Jolly, आप करोगे?
Yeah. Okay, sir. I'll do.
क्या बोल रहे थे मोनिका?
Sir, I was asking the citation.
Oh, the citation of Mahant versus Tirupati. It is AIR 1965, Supreme Court 1231. Any questions?
Sir, so my question was, what all are the circumstances where a court can specify that the interest not included in the total amount?
Circumstances, जैसे कि मान लो it was someone was
I
trespassing.
mean, are there specified
grounds for it? So मान लो if someone is trespassing in good faith, someone is very poor, कुछ ऐसे जो हैं factors हैं जहाँ पे equity या empathy is being invoked and it is not completely unfounded. In such situations, court can, be like, okay, let's be kind to this man, let's leave him, कर लेते हैं, इसको allow कर दो, इसका mesne profit है पर interest माफ कर दो। या मान लो someone is seeking interest say at 30% or 40%, like crazy amount, so court can say कि no, not this amount, it will be this amount. तो जैसे जो ये जॉली कल केस प्रिपेयर करेगी उसमें एग्जीक्यूटिंग कोर्ट ने कहा था कि जहां कोर्ट ने अवॉर्ड नहीं किया इंटरेस्ट, वहां 6% इंटरेस्ट समझा जा सकता है, राइट? तो देयर आर सच सर्कमस्टेंसेस जहां फैक्ट्स ऑफ द केस में कोर्ट को लगता है कि भाई यहाँ इंटरेस्ट दे दो, यहाँ इंटरेस्ट मत दो, या यहाँ एक पर्टिकुलर रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट दो, यहाँ एक पर्टिकुलर रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट मत दो, राइट?
And so, does the plaintiff have to specifically plead for interest along with Mesne profits, or if he just puts a claim of Mesne profits, and the court will be bound to give interest?
What do you think in from a bare reading of section 2 subsection 12?
It includes interest.
Yes, so it includes interest. That is why this is such a special provision. Please know this, it's very important. It can come in your MCQ also. Mesne profits may interest is assumed. In no other usual litigation is interest assumed. So if you, it is for the court, the burden is on the court actually to dispossess someone of interest while awarding mesne profit, not the other way around. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also एक चीज समझना, mesne profit should be essentially net profits. Profit always means difference between amount realized and expenses incurred in realization. ठीक है? तो किसी का ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट को आप मेसने प्रॉफिट नहीं मानोगे, नेट प्रॉफिट को मेसने प्रॉफिट मानोगे. ग्रॉस और नेट सब समझते हैं?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's move ahead now. Let's come to the next subsection. What is it?
Movable property.
Read.
Subsection 13, movable property includes growing crops.
Yes. So movable property includes growing crops. It tells you about the time when, CPC was made. Apart from that, other kinds of movable property are also included in movable property. Can someone give me an example of movable property? Anyone? Movable property?
Every property which is not immovable, like includes in the definition of movable, for example, cars.
Yes.
And any box or any almiras, TV, AC, all
Every property which is, say, not the hammer of Thor can be considered as movable property. Okay? Everything that can move in the normal course of events will be considered as movable property. Iske alawa, this is not a very important provision for the purpose of CPC. Generally, you know what is a movable property. So should we proceed to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
बोलो कौन पढ़ेगा?
So may I?
हाँ बोलो, पढ़ो.
To subclause 14, order. Order means the formal expression of any decision of a civil court which is not a decree.
So I think I've spent enough time on judgment, order and decree, but just know that there can be several orders that can be passed in the course of an adjudication. Okay? Now, if you read the definition of order and then you read the definition of decree, you will find that there are some points which are very, very not repetitive but important. Like even an order means the formal expression of a decision, just like a decree means the formal expression of something, right? So there are some common points which you should write for order and decree. Like number one is both are adjudications of a court of law. Okay? Number two is both are formal expressions of a decision. Number three, both relate to determination of matter in controversy. And number four, both are decisions given by a court. Why? Both are adjudications of a court of law largely. So both are adjudications, both are formal expression, both relate to determination of a matter in controversy. But what is the distinction? The distinction is a decree conclusively determines the rights of the parties with regard to all or any of the matters in controversy. An order may or may not determine such rights. That is a distinction. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Generally in a suit,
Yes, sir.
Only one decree is passed. Or maybe if there's a preliminary decree, maybe two decrees are passed, but few decrees will be passed, right? because conclusively determining the rights of parties in an ongoing suit is not something like you won't always have a partly preliminary, partly final decree, or even a preliminary decree at every stage. It will come in few stages, but orders may be passed at several stages of a suit or proceedings. That's the second distinction. Number 3, a decree can only be passed in a suit, whereas an order may be passed in a suit as well as other proceedings. जैसे मैंने जो अभी आपको ऑर्डर एंड जजमेंट भेजा हाई कोर्ट वाला, that's not in a suit. Okay, so are we clear with order? Should we move ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who will read the next subsection? Go ahead, Samya.
Section 2, subsection 15. Pleader means any person entitled to appear and plead for another in court and includes an advocate, a vakil, and an attorney of a high court.
Quite simple. Pleader यानी कि वकील होता है usually, right? And जो लिखा हुआ है सबसेक्शन में उसी के हिसाब से उनका डोमेन होता है जो चीजें हैं. Not a very relevant section for civil procedure code. However, know this, that what you may be asked a question on these lines, that what are the powers of a pleader, right? What can a pleader do? Now, to know the powers of a pleader, have you ever seen a wakalatnama? How many of you have seen a wakalatnama? Do you know what is a wakalatnama?
Yes, sir.
What is a wakalatnama?
So the client signs the wakalatnama to give the powers that you can represent them on the court. On behalf of them, you can act on the court like a
Okay.
legal representative.
How many of you have seen a wakalatnama? Let me ask a different question. How many of you have not seen a wakalatnama? So does this mean that Sukriti, Hridesh, Kaveri, Simran, Ankur, Monica, Soumya, are you all sleeping? You have not seen, you have seen. कुछ भी जवाब नहीं दे रहे हो.
Sir, I might have seen.
Sir, I have seen.
अब एकदम से सब उठ गए नींद से, बहुत सारे जवाब दे रहे हैं. मैं फिर से पूछ रहा हूँ. How many of you have seen a wakalatnama?
Sir, I might have seen it, but I'm not very sure of the contents.
Sir, I have seen it, and we also have made it in the moot court, sir. So sort of.
Acha. If you read a wakalatnama, let me just share one with you. If I might just have a wakalatnama readily available. किस client से sign कराया मैंने wakalatnama अभी? अभी तो चलो next class I'll start with a wakalatnama, like a simple format. You know, a wakalatnama gives the, if you read a wakalatnama, it has a lot of complicated language and it gives the lawyer a lot of power. So this power includes, the power of a pleader includes, number 1, abandoning an issue. यानी कि कोर्ट अगर कहीं प्रेस कर रही है, कुछ कर रही है, द लॉयर हैज द पावर, द प्लीडर हैज द पावर कि वो छोड़ दे एक इशू को. ठीक है, क्लाइंट देता है वो वकील को. नंबर 2, एडमिशन. नंबर 3, कॉम्प्रोमाइज. सो इफ अ लॉयर इज एंटरिंग इनटू अ कॉम्प्रोमाइज ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ अ क्लाइंट, दैट बिकम्स सीरियस, राइट? If you see कि मतलब the lawyer makes a statement at the bar कि I am making this statement कि my client is willing for compromise. So the pleader enjoys this power. Number 4, reference to arbitration. Number 5, delegation of power to plead. यानी कि lawyer can further delegate it to, you know, his junior counsel, etc. So these are powers of a pleader: to abandon the issue, for admission, compromise, reference to arbitration, and delegation. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next पढ़ो.
Subsection 16. Prescribed means prescribed by rules. Subsection 17. Public
So
officer.
subsection 18 वो subsection 16 is clear, largely prescribed means prescribed by rules. मतलब और किस चीज से prescribed होगा? मतलब अगर कहीं लिखा है so and so prescribed, तो prescribed in the official gazette, etc., etc., तो 44A से related है. मतलब कहीं भी prescribed word used है, इसका मतलब जो rules के हिसाब से हो रहा है. Is it clear? मतलब there's nothing much to it. It's not a very important subsection with regard to CPC. Okay. Yes. Next.
Subsection 17. Public officer means a person falling under any of the following descriptions, namely, every judge, every member of the Indian Civil Service, every commissioned or gazetted officer in the military, naval, or air forces of the Union. The words included in. So, should I read these also, the ones which are in the bracket?
Why not?
The words including His Majesty's Indian Marine Service while serving under the government. Every officer of a court of justice whose duty it is as such officer to investigate or report on any matter of law or fact, or to make, authenticate or keep any document, or to take charge or dispose of any property, or to execute any judicial process, or to administer any oath, or to interpret or to preserve order in the court, and every person specially authorized by a court of justice to perform any of such duties. Every person who holds any office by virtue of which he is empowered to place or keep any person in confinement. Every officer of the government whose duty it is, as such officer, to prevent offences, to give information of offences, to bring offenders to justice, or to protect the public health, safety, or convenience. Every officer whose duty it is, as such officer, to
ये तुमने
take.
His Majesty कहाँ पढ़ा था सौम्या? Where did you read His Majesty? In C.
Sir, हाँ, C में.
Do your versions read His Majesty? CPC versions of all of you.
No, sir.
तुम कहाँ अंग्रेजों की जमाने की जेलर तो नहीं हो गई हो सौम्या?
सर जो मैं पढ़ी हूँ उसमें ये लिखा हुआ है.
नहीं तो कोई बात नहीं. तो this was substituted by an act of in 1950. ठीक है? तो CPC तो भाई His Majesty and Her Majesty के थे ना हम लोग गुलाम तब बनी थी. तो उसके बाद ये 1950 में सब्स्टिट्यूट हो गया था. बट हाँ, प्लीज कंटिन्यू रीडिंग wherever you were.
Every of subsection G, every officer whose duty it is as such officer to take, receive, keep, or expend any property on behalf of the government, or to make any survey, assessment, or contract on behalf of the government, or to execute any revenue process, or to investigate or to report on any matter affecting the pecuniary interests of the government, or to make, authenticate, or keep any document relating to the pecuniary interest of the government, or to prevent the infraction of any law for the protection of the pecuniary interests of the government. And every officer in the service or pay of the government, or remunerated by fees or commission for the performance of any public duty.
Okay. Again, not a very important section for the purposes of CPC. It just defines various classes of who is a public officer. I can just give you a very interesting case law, which I'm trying to see. It's a 1974 Patna High Court judgment. 1974 Patna High Court judgment. Kamta Prasad Singh versus Regional Manager, Food Corporation of India. KAMTA, Kamta. Kamta Prasad Singh versus Regional Manager, Food Corporation of India. AIR 1974, Patna 376. It was held here that where the officers of a corporation, the capital whereof was provided by the central government, are in service and pay of the corporation and are paid out of the funds of the corporation, have been held by the Patna High Court that they are not officers within the meaning of section 2 subsection 17 of CPC. So यानी कि do you know of this of say Ajay Hasia versus Union of India and RD Shetty वाले cases जहाँ state की powers और क्या क्या ये कौन कौन से entities को आप state मान सकते हो, तो उसमें deep and pervasive control and all those tests are given out. For the purpose of CPC, आप किसको public officer मानोगे is solely dependent on the very restrictive and exhaustive kind of a criteria of section 2 subsection 17. Is that clear? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's read further. Kuch question किसी का on public officer? No, I think everybody is good. Let's read further.
Rules means rules and forms contained in the first schedule or made under section 122 or section 125.
Okay. Does it also say what it does not include? No. Okay. Can someone quickly read section 122 or section 125 that these rules are referring to?
So I can.
Padho?
122, power of certain high courts to make rules. High courts, not being the court of a judicial commissioner, may, from time to time, after previous publication, make rules regulating their own procedure and the procedure of the civil courts, subject to their superintendence, and may by such rules annul, alter, or add to all or any of the rules in the first schedule.
So have you heard, do you know which provision of the Constitution gives the High Court powers of superintendence? Article
227.
Yes, 227. तो अगर आप देखो, मैं इसलिए आपको बीच बीच में कॉन्स्टी का भी प्रोविजन का आपको बता रहा हूँ. There's a link between CPC and other laws, and specifically between CPC and Consti. तो जब आप पढ़ो rules, rule making power और rules की बात, so it's not just say rules within the meaning of subsection 18. It is also within the meaning of section 122, which is also within the meaning of article 227 of the Constitution of India. Okay, for example, in our High Court, we have PIL rules. So PIL rules provide that we have to give a declaration of res integra. Res integra समझते हैं आप लोग क्या होता है? Does anyone know what is res integra? It essentially means, is there a question of law? A new question of law. So you've got to declare in the first few paras if there is a question of law. If there is one, then uska alag format hai ki matlab if it's a legal question involved, then you've got to, there are some paragraphs you've got to write. If there is no legal question involved and it's only a question of implementation of the law or interpretation of existing already interpreted laws, then you've got to adhere to another kind of formula. So I'm just trying to tell you ki why these things are important. So section 122 padha, ab section 125 padho.
Section 125, power of high courts to make rules. High courts, other than the courts specified in section 122, may exercise the powers conferred by that section in such manner and subject to such conditions as the state government may determine, provided that any such high court may, after previous publication, make a rule extending within the local limits of its jurisdiction any rules which have been made by any other high court.
So let me give you an example. Just we are the Uttarakhand High Court. We are a small High Court. We really follow whatever the Allahabad High Court does because it was in a way our parent High Court before the state was created. So High Courts have this power to do so under section 125. तो आपको basically समझ में आया rules का मतलब जो subsection 18 में लिखा हुआ है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, पढ़ो कोई. Quickly, I want to finish this. Yes, next.
Subsection 19, share in a corporation shall be deemed to include stock, debentures, or bonds.
Who can look up these very basic concepts of what is a stock, what is a debenture stock, what is a debentures or bond generally, and come to class tomorrow? Sukriti, you'll do that?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So section 2 subsection 19 पे you will give a 2-minute presentation only. 2 मिनट से ज़्यादा नहीं बोलोगे, ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Subsection 20.
Subsection 20, sign, save in the case of a judgment or decree includes stamped.
तो साइन के ऊपर है ये कि कब किसको मतलब साइन माना जाएगा. लाइक स्टैम्प कब माना जाएगा. कभी आपने देखा होगा जैसे जो इलिटरेट लोग होते हैं वो अंगूठा लगाते हैं. हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ दिस?
Yes, sir.
तो अंगूठा छाप जिनको बोलते हैं जनरली मतलब अंगूठा भी लगाना. तो इट इज कॉल्ड मतलब इट इज अ काइंड ऑफ साइन. ठीक है. Sign, and it even includes stamp. However, there are some special legislations which have a very different definition of sign, of sign. Jahan sign should have come, say, from more than one authority. Say it's a case of, say, misappropriation of funds of a society or of a trust. Then the signature has to come from different authorities. So, ऐसी situation में sign as defined in CPC is not extended to those situations. So, for example, there is a Public Demand Recovery Act. Demand Recovery Act. इस एक्ट पर साइन की ये डेफिनेशन नहीं चलती है. There is a case on this. Abanindra Kumar versus A.K. Biswas. AIR 1954, Calcutta 355. Division Bench.
Sir, please repeat the citation once again.
AIR 1954, Calcutta 355. Okay. So we have given a lot of time to the definitional section of CPC. I think it is very important to have your fundamentals clear. Those of you who attended this class and the classes with regard to section 2, and if you've really understood things, CPC will be a very smooth sail for you. If you have not understood things, you can always come back to me and ask me. And who will take this responsibility of telling your friends who've missed the class today, such as Mahim, Muskan, and Gurav, and Ishu. These 4 people at least, and I don't know who are the others also who missed the class. Who will tell them that they have to follow up at least on the first hour?
Sir, I will.
Okay, do that. Positive recovery. Okay.
Okay.
Acha, now since we have some time at hand, let's quickly cover all the sections before section 9, and then we will be done with sections 1 to 20 in every bit and way, and we'll just proceed with the act further, right? So who will read subsection? Who will read section 3? Quickly. Yes, Simran.
Section 3. Subordination of courts. For the purposes of this code, the district court is subordinate to the High Court, and every civil court of a grade inferior to that of a district court, and every court of small causes is subordinate to the High Court and the district court.
Okay. It essentially deals with subordination of courts. So generally, people, some of the very basic things become questions to which people don't have answers. Where is this hierarchy of courts written? Where is it provided? Why do appeals from a district court go to the High Court and not directly to the Supreme Court? Why do appeals from a civil judge junior division go to civil judge senior division? In what cases will a case directly be instituted at the court of the additional district judge? So there is a clear provision in CPC, which is section 3, which deals with subordination of courts. Okay. And please note that this provision essentially deals with courts and not directly with tribunals. With regard to tribunals, there are a different set of provisions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. My internet is working. That's nice. Okay. So with regard to district courts, section 3 applies only on them, on courts for the purposes of CPC. As you read in the first line, for the purposes of this court. It does not apply to tribunals and others. Okay. Okay, I think that's largely it about it. You need not. There are some case laws on this, but I don't think you will need anything on this section specifically. Any questions on this section? Should we move to? Okay. Should we move to section 4?
Yes.
Please read section 4.
Section 4 is savings. In the absence of any specific provision to the contrary, nothing in this code shall be deemed to limit or otherwise affect any special or local law now in force of any special jurisdiction or power conferred, or any special form of procedure prescribed by or under any other law for the time being in a force. Subsection 2. In particular and without prejudice to the generality of the proposition contained in subsection 1, nothing in this code shall be deemed to a limit or otherwise affect any remedy which a landholder or landlord may have under any law for the time being in force for the recovery of rent of agricultural land from the produce of such land. Do you want me to read comments also?
You can read the comment. I think it will be helpful
Yeah.
for this section.
Arbitration Act being special statute, provision of CPC could not be applied. When there is a special provision under section 37(1)(b) of the Act for challenging the wires of the order of the present nature, it is completely out of jurisdiction for this court to entertain revision petition because that will be allowing the litigant to bypass the specific provision under the special statute, which could not be allowed to be done in the light of saving contained in section 4(1) of the CPC. The case name is Ashok Kumar Singh versus Shanti Devi.
I think Ashok Kumar Singh versus Shanti Devi is a case of some importance. Can anyone undertake to prepare a case note on it?
Sir, I will.
ओके कल प्रिपेयर करके लाना इसको तो बेसिकली इसका मतलब ये है सेविंग्स क्लॉज का इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्लॉज इन एनी लेजिस्लेशन सेविंग्स क्लॉज एसेंशियली मींस कि जब अगर कहीं कोई इनकंसिस्टेंसी है और एक स्पेशल लॉ है ठीक है तो इट इज नॉट एज इफ ऑटोमेटिकली द कोड बिकम्स एप्लीकेबल द सीपीसी कोड द सिविल प्रोसीजर कोड the code can be applied when there is no inconsistency but when there is inconsistency so aise mein na special laws are ones which prevail they are the ones who prevail over such inconsistencies more than a general law like the civil procedure code because CPC is not lex specialis okay
Yes, sir.
Does anyone want me to break up section 4 and explain? These are not important sections for the purposes of your exam. So I'm just wanting to go through with them so that you know what they are. But anyway, any question on section 4?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Let's come to section 5. Who will read section 5?
Section 5 is application of the code to revenue codes. Where any revenue codes are governed by the provisions of this code in those matters of procedure upon which any special enactment applicable to them is silent, the state government may by notification in the official gazette declare that any portions of these provisions which are not expressly made applicable by this code shall not apply to those codes or shall only apply to them with such modification as the state government may prescribe. Subsection 2, Revenue Code. In subsection 1 means a court having jurisdiction under any local law to entertain suits and other proceedings relating to the rent, revenue or profits of land used for agricultural purposes, but does not include a civil court having original jurisdiction under this code to try such suits or proceedings as being suits or proceedings of a civil nature.
Comments हैं यहाँ पे?
So the Bear Act I have doesn't have any comment.
Okay. So essentially, you know, application of the code to revenue code becomes important because how it works is कि कई बार civil matters और revenue matters में बहुत overlap होता है. That is why there is a need for this kind of an application. So if you read this subsection 1, you know, very carefully, जहां भी revenue codes are governed by provisions of this code in those matters of procedure upon which any special enactment applicable to them is silent, the state government may by notification in the official gazette declare, which means it is not as if automatically the code will apply to revenue matters. However, there are cases there are many cases in fact where state governments apply CPC to revenue matters. Because revenue matters may be, do you know what is a revenue matter? Can anyone tell me what is a revenue matter? It's specified in subsection 2. Anyone?
So revenue is basic income which is generated by some act.
Yes. So any matter which involves say rent, profits, all these things, इनको भी even say agricultural purposes से जो आ रही है, अगर मैं subsection 2 के सेंस से आपको देकर बताऊं तो इनको revenue matters कह सकते हैं. Okay. As you know, section 9 is the gateway to CPC, and it gives CPC inherent powers to try suits of civil nature, if you remember, right? Kuch suits of civil nature, but not all, to try civil suits actually. And not all civil suits that are filed therein are suits of civil nature. तो इसीलिए रेवेन्यू मैटर्स जो होते हैं उनमें आपको ये देखना होता है कि रेवेन्यू कोर्ट्स में चलते हैं, वो थोड़ा सिविल कोर्ट से अलग होती है. कई बार रेवेन्यू कोर्ट्स में आप देखोगे कि सब डिविजनल मैजिस्ट्रेट या एडिशनल डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट, सिटी मैजिस्ट्रेट, these become authorities and simply land related issues और revenue related issues कि किसका कितना शेयर बनता है and all of that, ये वो कोर्ट्स देखते हैं. तो सिविल प्रोसीजर कोड के प्रोविजंस अगर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट बाय नोटिफिकेशन प्रिस्क्राइब कर देती है तो ये रेवेन्यू मैटर्स में भी अप्लाई होते हैं. बट अगर ऐसा प्रिस्क्रिप्शन नहीं होता है तो कोर्ट civil procedure code will not apply to such revenue codes. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
So can you just repeat it once again?
Revenue codes are those as defined in subsection 2 which are dealing with revenue related adjudication. Okay. Now, revenue related adjudication would include adjudication as specified in subsection 2 with regard to land, rent from land, profit from land for agricultural purposes, etc. Now, if a state government by notification extends the provisions of civil procedure code to such revenue codes, in such cases CPC provisions will apply to revenue codes. However, when it is not extended, in that case it will not apply. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Section 6, anybody? Quickly.
Pecuniary jurisdiction.
Yes.
Pecuniary jurisdiction. Save in so far as is otherwise expressly provided, nothing herein contained shall operate to give any court jurisdiction over suits the amount or value of the subject matter of which exceeds the pecuniary limits of its ordinary jurisdiction.
So, save in, again there's a saving clause here. Insofar as is otherwise expressly provided, nothing herein contained shall operate to give any court jurisdiction over the suits the amount or value of the subject matter of which exceeds the pecuniary limits of its ordinary jurisdiction. It is clear that this is more in the nature of a saving clause. Tell me one thing, who in a suit will be first valuing the suit? कौन पहले सूट को वैल्यू करेगा?
The plaintiff.
Yes. So prima facie, it is the plaintiff who has the first right to value the suit. However, tell me at this also, can the valuation of a suit be challenged by the defendant? It's overvalued or undervalued or whatever. Can the defendant say so?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
he can, right? So these are also issues for determination. So in such cases, section 6 is clearly saying that अगर pecuniary jurisdiction है एक कोर्ट का, पहले with regard to plaintiff ने जो determine किया है, मैं आपको वैसे समझा रहा हूँ, जो plaintiff ने किया है मान लो 50 लाख और वो एक 50 लाख वाली कोर्ट के पास आया है, तो ये कोर्ट सुनेगी उस मैटर को. और अगर दूसरी पार्टी कहती है कि इसके पास इवैल्यूएशन ही गलत है और ये तो 5 लाख का डिस्प्यूट है और जाना इसको 5 लाख के पास चाहिए था, 50 लाख के पास नहीं, तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में वो 50 लाख की कोर्ट सबसे पहले तो ये डिसीजन लेगी कि इसको मेरे पास सुनना जाना है या उसको 5 लाख वाली कोर्ट के पास जाना है, राइट? तो ये पेक्यूनियरी जुरिस्डिक्शन का अपना पावर एंड ताकि अप्रोप्रिएट कोर्ट अप्रोप्रिएट सब्जेक्ट मैटर का अपना पेक्यूनियरी लिमिट के हिसाब से अपने मैटर सुने इज एनश्राइन्ड इन सेक्शन 6 ऑफ सीपीसी. सबको समझ में आया?
Yes.
Okay. Then we can read section 7, but we have reached time. So maybe section 7 and 8 बहुत छोटे हैं, 5 minute में हो जाएंगे. And then, we will continue with CPC tomorrow. We've covered extensive ground today. I just hope that you guys understood and followed things. And whenever you feel I should practically share an example with you, practically share documents with you, you can just let me know and I will do so. Okay? So thank you. And I just read on the group that you wanted a class time change. Is it so?
Yes, sir. Only
Okay.
in weekends.
Only for weekends. So are you guys early risers? Will an early morning class be fine?
No,
with you?
sir. No, sir. No, sir.
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
We keep it in the evening hours.
If it's not
Then-
too early,
So how early are you proposing?
Yes, sir. Depends upon the time.
okay, I think you will find that very early.
Try to make it up early, but
See, tomorrow I was anyway going to, it's become a habit with me. Shweta will actually be laughing at it when I call her again after this class and say, Shweta, for this Sunday, can it be? I was wanting to make it 8 to 10 in the evening. I usually, I'm going out on Sundays to for some errands specifically. So I'm out for the most of the day. So if you wanted a morning class, I would have actually, I will be out. I will certainly not be able to take the class probably between 2 and 4. I would have requested her. I would have proposed 8 to 10 p.m. कल के लिए at least. फिर तो weekend will be gone. For the next weekend we can plan structurally. Otherwise, I was thinking for an early morning class, but I think many of you are not happy with an early morning class. So I usually like getting up at 5 a.m. and I'm very productive between 6 and 8 a.m. But I think you guys won't like that.
6 to 8 is zero productivity for me.
Yes, we won't be able to get up. So
It'll be a new experience.
It could be a new
Timing all
experience.
of
Can
us
you
and
try
we'll
it
try
tomorrow?
to
Sir,
become-
I would like to.
Yes, sir.
join
I'd
5
like to.
a.m.
not
एक बार थोड़ा सा
tomorrow, next
discuss करो.
weekend, please.
एक बार try करो. पता है, I'll tell you one thing. When you get up in the early morning, na, with the birds and the bees around you and the beautiful sunrise, it's such a good thing. We are so, it's a very good thing. You can actually try. I am up for 6 to 8 for tomorrow, but if it's a problem, I would propose 8 to 10 p.m. So you can let me know which of the two is better for you.
Sir,
Sir, I'm okay with both of the time.
Same here.
Oh, actually, some of you are actually okay with 6 to 8 a.m. How many of you are okay with 6 to 8 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
I am.
Acha.
Sir, I wake up around 5 a.m. on daily basis.
Oh, very good. So, Ankur, I think there are around 6 people who are ready to call you at 5:30 a.m. onwards. Ud jao, CPC section 7 is waiting for you.
I don't know if I'll be able to wake up.
Is not the pull of provincial, what was that section? I think small causes court enough for you to wake up? But whatever, you can take a call. इन दोनों में से कोई भी time मुझे बता दो on the group, and I will anyway be calling Shweta and requesting her for tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, chalo. See you tomorrow then. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Bye-bye.